I think, we do have to be optimistic, right? And the way to do this is not to become too essentialist and start to talk about culture and things that can't ever change. I mean, this is silly. Historians know that things actually do change. That what really stands out in Sweden, when you look at it more closely, is not what some people tend to emphasize, some form of collectivism, politics of social solidarity, of a large state, of a kind of obedient people. Rather, the position of the individual in the Nordic countries is much stronger, right, than is commonly thought. I mean, we can distinguish between different types of individuals. Swedish individualism is not one that is focused on self-expression in the sense that, you want to stand out as eccentric, right? Here it's really about autonomy. We see, for example, if you ask elderly in Sweden, what do they prefer? To be dependent in their old age on their own children or on the state? They answer the state. It's not that they don't want to have relationships with their children or their beloved. It's that they don't want to have it in those terms, right, of dependency, need. Right? And if we look at Swedish social policies and family policies, right, they have this in common, right, that they tend to maximize the autonomy and freedom. And this is the true story of the welfare state. It would be, I think, wrong to paint a too cozy kind of or a rosy picture, right? If you're a patient, right, if you're sick in Sweden, everybody has access to healthcare. But your rights in healthcare, if something goes wrong, if there's dispute, right, anything like that, your rights are much, much weaker. So there are moments of conflict between yourself as an individual and the state in one of its forms. There is a problem, I think. It's a minority moment, right? It happens, but it happens rarely. In some people's lives, it maybe happens only a couple of times or never. Do not forget, we have a voucher system in Sweden when it comes to schools and healthcare that conservatives in Britain and America can only dream of. This, again, is not something people are usually aware of, right? To be sure, you're paying a lot of taxes. Yeah, if you turn around and you ask your view of freedom is that of maximizing your disposable income, then I would say Swedes are, this is statistically true, the most unfree nation in the world. Emphasis, right, upon everybody having the same rights on the one hand, and on the other hand, the kind of classical liberal individual rights that we see is much more typical of the Anglo-American country. That's not easily resolvable, right? And there are some profound cleavages here, and there are real choices that we have to make, And, I can see the point. Having lived in the U.S., right? I have disposable income. To be sure, I had that. But I had to pay for a lot of stuff. I had to put money away for kids for college. I had to pay my health insurance, my retirement plans, and so forth and so on. And I still didn't feel particularly safe and secure. This is the $1 million question, right? This is a very, very good question. It needs to be repeated. One way to do it is to look at the level of institutions that we can actually change, right? Take one little example. Establishing daycare centers, right? There is no big secret to that. That's the institutional reform that you can do, without which, you cannot have the type of fluidity and social mobility in the marketplace. That is one great strength of the Nordic countries. We don't have like 50% of the population being stuck at home, right? So if we start to look at it at this level of detail, right, real practical institutions, they are still embedded, of course, right, in cultural values and assumptions that are hard to change.
Do you think it's possible, once inequality reaches a relatively high level, for countries to actually reduce it?
What is more difficult to change than equality is trust. The kind of social trust and confidence in institutions that really is necessary for those policies to be accepted and to work. Those are much harder to export. So, the question of social trust and equality are so linked, right? They co-vary, and you can't change one without the other, right?
That's the key question. Where are you going to retire, Lars?
Well, I'm not ready yet. I fled Sweden once. I fled Sweden when I was like 17, because I wanted to find, really that kind of extreme form of American freedom. And besides that, I wanted to have a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Plus, it's exciting. I've been away 40 years. It's fun. I feel like an anthropologist going to look at a strange people.
If you could tell me how the legal system developed in both countries so drastically differently, and the impact that's had on equality of wealth.
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, the United States, right, was based on a fundamental suspicion of state power, right? I mean, these were people fleeing from the English crown, essentially, right? So they were obsessed with minimizing state power, maximizing individual liberty. In Sweden, we have a suspicion of the judiciary, right? So the whole juridical system is rigged in favor of the wealthy, right? Therefore, we cannot let the judiciary have any sort of power that we cannot over-trump through the democratic process, namely the parliament. So in Sweden, we have, even more than in the UK, we have what we can think was parliamentary dictatorship, right, in relationship to all other institutions, right? You got your 50% majority, you do whatever you want, right? Okay. So the law in Sweden functions in a totally different way, and it's viewed, right, as a lesser form, right, of doing essentially politics. Whereas in the United States, of course, a lot of politics are carried out through the courts, right, with the help of lawyers. I mean, just think of the civil rights movement, disability rights movement, right? All of this stuff is about anti-discrimination law, right, about rights of individuals, not to be put in those positions. You know? This is very new stuff in Sweden.